Thank all of you for being here. We have a great representation from Ukraine, and I think this is an important occasion. Like all of you, Francis and I have been watching the news. We've been seeing the devastation being inflicted on the people of Ukraine. It is abundantly clear that the people of Ukraine are strong, that they're united as a nation, but it is heartbreaking to see what they have been forced to do in this war, what they've been forced to endure, and the loss, the destruction that we're all seeing is really saddening. We're all appalled by what we've seen, by what they're enduring, by what they're forced to endure, and we're all inspired by their courage and by their will to resist. I have repeatedly joined with President Biden and other leaders here in the United States to condemn the unprovoked and unjustified invasion of Ukraine by Russia. The fact that a peaceful, sovereign nation has been unjustly attacked and invaded by a geopolitical bully has rightly drawn the attention and the recrimination of the entire world. Our Commonwealth has strong ties to Ukraine that long predate this invasion. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania is home to 122,000 Ukrainian Americans, officially. That's the second highest, I think, of any state in the United States. We also have a deepening business relationship with Ukraine. Just last year, as David will point out, Pennsylvania's Office of International Business Development worked with the American Chamber of Commerce in Ukraine and the United States Embassy there to conduct webinars to help Ukrainian businesses identify opportunities in the United States. We also welcomed Ukrainian business visitors last year, including one who you'll hear from in a minute, Victor, who chose to build a factory and U.S. headquarters in Pennsylvania. The people of Pennsylvania have personal, cultural, and business ties to the people in Ukraine, ties that further deepen our grief and our outrage at the tragedy they are now suffering. The images we're all seeing constantly from the Ukraine are shocking, again, and disturbing. The people of Ukraine are being attacked. They're being injured by an invading army. They're being displaced. They're being driven from their homes. And in the face of that violence and brutality, the people of Ukraine have shown immense courage and bravery. Courage and bravery they should never have been forced to draw on. So Pennsylvania stands with Ukraine. And as governor of this Commonwealth, I will continue to do everything in my power to support the people of Ukraine. Among the things, our Commonwealth stands ready to welcome refugees from Ukraine and to help all those fleeing violence find safety here in Pennsylvania. We're also doing everything in our power to support economic sanctions against the invader, Russia. The Commonwealth has already reviewed our contracts to ensure that we are not doing business with Russia. I called on the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board to remove Russian-sourced products from the stores, and I applaud the board of the Liquor Control Board for swiftly taking action to do so. I called on the Pennsylvania State Employees Retirement System and the Public School Employees Retirement System to divest in their pension fund from investments connected to Russia, and I applaud their boards for swiftly taking action as well. Pennsylvania Treasurer Stacey Garrity has announced that she is in the process of divesting $2.9 million in Russian holdings in the investment accounts that are controlled by the Pennsylvania Treasury. And I applaud her, I applaud the Treasurer for her swift action. My administration will continue to review what additional actions we can take, both to support the people of Ukraine and to divest from Russian assets. For example, I strongly support adding Russia to the list of countries we divest from under law. And I would sign clean legislation to require divestment of all public funds from Russian assets, such as the concept recently announced by House Leader Kerry Benninghoff. I also urge the General Assembly to provide $2 million to the Office of Refugee Resettlement to help support Ukrainian refugees displaced by the war. That funding would allow us to support community-based resettlement agencies across the Commonwealth as they provide services to Ukrainian refugees, providing faster and more flexible ways to get services to the people who need them. The Ukrainian people need our help. They need it now. And it's incumbent on all of us to step up and work together to provide the support they need. At a time when Russia is trying to sow division in our world, We must stand united in our opposition to injustice, and we must support the people who have war inflicted upon their homes, their families, and their nation. Thank you. And now I'm going to turn things over to the Honorary Consul of Ukraine in Philadelphia, Irina Mazur. Or Irina Mazur.
Thank you. Good afternoon. On behalf of the Pennsylvania Ukrainian American community, I would like to thank you for standing and supporting Ukraine. I would like to thank the Commonwealth, its leadership, and its people for their outstanding and outspoken response to the brutal aggression of Russia's government against the Ukrainian people. But perhaps even more importantly, I would like to thank you for coming together in this unprecedented, passionate, and generous support of Ukraine. During these dark days, it has reassured me greatly that we have all found a strong sense of unity, and it was Ukraine that actually united all of us. I ask you only two things actually. First, please keep Ukraine and Ukrainian people in your prayers and in your hearts, and to provide support whatever you can. And while we will continue to keep hope in our hearts, it is heartbreaking truth that men, women, and children in Ukraine are being indiscriminately murdered and maimed by constant shelling by Russian military forces. Medical and humanitarian interventions are desperately and urgently needed right now. It has been through the contributions and support of people like you and through the Commonwealth that the lives of the innocents have been saved. And we thank you again for your kindness, for your generosity, and for your compassion. I sincerely thank the Commonwealth of the Pennsylvania and personally Governor Wolf for taking the lead in adopting such a strong response to Russia's brutal aggression against Ukraine and Ukrainian people and terror against the entire world. Pennsylvania sends strong message to support to Ukraine by full divestment of any public funds from Russia. The entire Ukrainian American community of the Commonwealth is enormously grateful for the display of such a level of support for Ukraine. Thank you. Thank you for standing with Ukraine. And thank you. And I had an honor to introduce David Briel. He is Executive Director, DCED Office of International Business Development.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm David Briel. I'm Deputy Secretary with the Office of International Business Development. I just want to give some background into our relationship with Ukraine. Like, what's Pennsylvania? How do we work with Ukraine? I mean, Ukraine is, just to give you some background on the number of imports and exports that we get every year. In 2021, so Pennsylvania imported about $28 million worth of goods and services from Ukraine. Now, if anybody wants a broken down list, I do have that data. I can certainly provide that to you. And our exports to Ukraine, about $57 million a year that Pennsylvania sends, that sells products and services to Ukraine. Just to give you some background on what Pennsylvania's total exports. So we export annually from the Commonwealth about $37.5 billion. Ukraine is a small but growing piece of that pie. So we certainly look forward to supporting Ukraine in its hour of need with trade and investment. Over the past year, we have been working with the Ukrainian organizations. As the governor had mentioned, in 2021, we did programs, for example, with the Chamber of Commerce in Lviv, as well as with the American Chamber of Commerce in Kyiv. This is all organized through the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv to help us. It's a way of keeping Pennsylvania's name out in front of international investors, particularly during the pandemic. We've done a number of these programs around the world, working with the U.S. Department of Commerce and national chambers to keep Pennsylvania's name relevant on the world stage in terms of investment trade. And one of those events, actually, you're going to hear it in a second from Victor Kolesnik, who is with Orange Pavers. Actually, his co-founder, Victor's co-founder, a guy named Yevgen, was one of our co-speakers who spoke about why Ukrainian and other European companies should invest in Pennsylvania. So, not only, he was a tremendous help to us of helping us to get the message out. So we look forward to continuing to working with Ukraine at its hour of need. And now I'd like to introduce Victor of Orange Pavers to come forward and tell his personal story. He's actually just back from the Ukrainian-Polish border a few weeks ago, and is also finishing his facility up in Strasburg, Pennsylvania. So, Victor? Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Well, Ukraine is right now under unprovoked Russian attack, and it is in full-scale terrorist invasion. The future of world democracy is at stake. Millions of people lives will be affected and is already affected by unlawful barbaric invasion from its neighbor Russia. I am a Ukrainian-American businessman working in the state of Pennsylvania, having businesses in Ukraine as well and in Pennsylvania. Most of my family members, as well as my businesses, suffered from one terrorist, Putin. My Ukrainian plant director that is currently there got under attack of machine gun gunfire while driving excuse me, out of plant in Kiev. Everybody got wounded, but thanks God, no casualties. My friend's parents who got executed by Russian Chechen soldiers, along with the civilians in town of Bucha right next to Kiev while hiding from the airstrikes in the basement. It is a full genocide of nation. Right now, that's what's going on in front of our eyes. I personally had experience, I was in the time when the invasion started, I was in Ukraine, I was western part of Ukraine, and I woke up at 4 a.m. in the morning from the airstrikes of the airport of Ivano-Frankivsk, and I was lucky to get out of the country on time. We spent 9 hours in the Polish border and safely went through the Warsaw back to US. And I saw all those people that were staying in the border, they were trying to evacuate the country, they were trying to escape this terrible invasion, and all this fear in their eyes, you cannot just say it in words. And I would like to thank you, Governor, and as well as State of Pennsylvania for all the support that we are having from the state of Pennsylvania. And I would like to ask you, the state of Pennsylvania officials, to further support all the Ukrainian nationals and isolate with any possible means Russia and Russian business here in U.S. territory. And also I'd like to ask to provide any military defensive assistance, weapons or hardware that can protect the sovereignty of Ukraine. Thank you.
So now we'd be happy to take questions. Yes, Dennis.
Governor, have you made any outreach with anyone for plan to bring refugees here to Pennsylvania? Is there any talks with anyone on that front?
No, but I think as the consul and I have talked about, there are already folks who have fled Ukraine and have come here. One of the things I'd like to do with the $2 million, Pennsylvania became a place for Afghan refugees to come, and that was a partnership between Pennsylvania. We had some Pennsylvania dollars in that and federal money. The $2 million would give us the flexibility that we might not have if we just had federal funds to actually reach out and say, we'd like to do what we can here. Yeah.
And you just made me think of a question. He's asking for help in the form of arms. Does Pennsylvania own arms, or is that a federal government? That's a federal government.
That's federal government, although we do have a National Guard, and I've actually been to the Baltic states and Poland. I didn't make it to Ukraine to visit our troops. We have Pennsylvania Guard national troops who have been stationed in Lithuania. We have a special relationship with Lithuania. And at that point, we had, I think, over 400, 500 troops in Poland. So I have been in that part of the world. We do have military there. We have American Pennsylvanians who are serving there, either as part of the National Guard mission or as part of a broader U.S. Army mission.
But in terms of weapons, the state doesn't actually have weapons they can give to a foreign national, right?
I have to confess, I don't know who exactly owns each and every piece of equipment that's out at Fort Indiantown Gap, but I'm pretty sure that we would not be able to act independently in terms of transferring any of those to anybody without the permission of the federal government. Yeah, Jen.
I was just wondering if you could be a little bit more specific on what the $2 million, how that would be used.
It's a matter of determining. I don't know what the need would be, and that's what we were talking just before we came out here about some of the things that we might be able to do. But there are a lot of Ukrainian citizens who have friends or families in Pennsylvania, and at this point, I don't think we know specifically what that need actually is. The consul is an immigration lawyer in Huntington Valley outside of Philly, and I think she has some specific ideas, and I think those would have to be worked out. All I know is whatever we do is going to cost money, and we probably ought to be looking to band together Republicans and Democrats and see if we can raise that money.
I was wondering if you have given any more thought to the House Republicans' request to send our PPE that's about to expire in our stockpile to Ukraine.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea for a lot of reasons. I mean, I think we're coming up on some expiration dates, so it's something that we certainly have the stockpile. I want to make sure we replace it with stockpile to serve Pennsylvanians as well. But I'm very open to that idea. Yeah.
We just talked a lot about the exports involving Ukraine, but can you give us an idea of the impact of exports from Russia? And I guess to an idea, I mean, is there any effort to try and limit what may or may not be going?
Yeah, I'm not sure. David, do you know what our exports are to Russia?
I can give you the exact. I do have the figures with me as well as the breakdown. With Russia right now, you're fielding a number of calls from companies who are trying to figure out sanctions. And frankly, the situation we know from that is done by the Treasury within the federal government to manage the sanctions. The Department of Commerce is our go-between, the U.S. Department of Commerce. If you want the strict numbers, we import about $1.7 billion worth of from Russia annually, and export just over about $250 million. I can certainly give you the breakdown. We are trying to work case by case with the companies who come to us to ask about sanctions. Much of the imports that we get from Russia is mineral fuels. That still is able to come, but it's a evolving situation daily, and we are continuing to work with the Department of Commerce to figure that out.
Yeah.
You mentioned you're looking into other options that you might be able to do. I know some of the options you mentioned are things you can't do unilaterally, but is there anything else that you guys are looking at from the administration side about options that you might have to do the goals that you mentioned?
We want to show our solidarity with Ukraine, and we've done the things we have thought of. If there's some other things that people would like to do, I think like the PPE, we'd certainly be open to figuring out how exactly we can do that. And I think I tried to mention that I think this is one of those things where Republicans and Democrats are actually united in trying to figure out what we can do. And I'm open to any suggestions beyond what we've already done.
You mentioned also that you want to see a clean bill come forward. I know Republicans have been talking a lot about various energy policy issues. Is that a non-starter if that ends up on the bill?
I don't think so. I think yeah, there are going to be areas where we disagree, but I think on this we all agree that we need to just get a clean bill, and let's do the right thing. I think the clean bill that Leader Benninghoff is talking about would add Russia to the list that has Iran and Sudan on it right now. So it's a fairly clean bill, and I said, send that to me, I'll sign it. Yeah.
As you wanted a unified front, but of course this is the Pennsylvania state capitol, so it's not always unified, as you may or may not know. House Republican Darrell Metcalf and some other Republicans saying we're not doing enough. We need to free up even more natural gas because Russia does have leverage over in Europe with its natural gas. Why is it Pennsylvania gas flowing that direction, and couldn't that help the whole situation?
Yeah, and I responded to Representative Metcalf. The fact is, Pennsylvania's, during my term, exports of natural gas has doubled. We actually have built pipelines to get into the export business, and who knew that would be really timely. So I think that was a little bit of disingenuous grandstanding. I think Pennsylvania is doing a lot. We have a big natural gas industry, the second largest producer of natural gas in the United States. And so there really is an opportunity for us to step in and help offset the losses that might be felt from countries that are using natural gas from Russia.
But could we be doing more? And the criticism is that perhaps while better than other northeastern states like New York and New Jersey, that we've been tapping the brakes a little bit, and we could actually be doing more in that
We've been
regard.
tapping the brakes.
Permitting process taking too long for some permits on pipelines. And
Yeah, I just had.
pipelines.
Well, I think.
There are, not mine.
Yeah, I just disagree. I think Pennsylvania, I've tried to balance the competing needs of the environment with the recognition that we do have this natural resource that could save lots of lives and be of strategic value and a very important issue here as we're making the transition to a more sustainable source of energy. Pennsylvania does have a role to play, and I think in the last 7 years, Pennsylvania has stepped up.
Would you be calling on, say, the universities or companies in Pennsylvania to sever their ties with Russia in any way that they, maybe academic programs that they have or anything like that? Just wondering.
I hadn't thought of that, but I think again, I want to do everything we can to show solidarity with Ukraine, and I'm not sure all of what that entails. I've tried to work with Republicans and to figure out what would be included in that list, and I think we've come up with a pretty good list. But if there's some other things, I'd be happy to consider those things. All right, thanks very much, and thank you.